Hello, all you memory-suppressing sleeper agents out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. This is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 discussion podcast in the universe. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo!
Today we're going to discuss Star Trek DS9 Season 6, Episode 18, Inquisition. Alternate title, And Then There Was Sloane. We will just, and not to be confused with Tribunal. I just think they have very...
Oh, I thought you meant there was a Sloane in Tribunal, and I was like, wait, what?
No. For some reason, the two titles just sound too similar to me.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Next Generation episode, The Drumhead.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so I was like, I was sitting here like, is that a better, or is Inquisition a better or worse title than The Drumhead? I'm not sure. So we'll get there when we get there.
I mean, I think The Drumhead is a way better title, but... We will be discussing spoilers up through this episode, but not after this episode. So it's safe to watch along with us if this is your first experience with Star Trek DS9. But we also spoil other stuff, either intentionally or accidentally, so watch out for that.
Or both.
Game of Thrones, Penguin Show.
Yeah, I am almost... I didn't watch this week's new episode, but other than that, I'm caught up on Penguin, and I've caught up on Agatha all along, so...
Oh, wow.
Since last time we recorded, I'm catching up on these things.
Nice. Of course, by the time this goes up, we will be way behind. So actually nothing we could say would probably spoil anything, but...
Unless they haven't watched it yet.
Right.
And given that we were spoiling things for people who haven't watched, Game of Thrones, possibly.
Yeah. Inquisition originally aired on April 8th, 1998. It was written by Bradley Thompson and David Weddle, and directed by Michael Dorn.
Yeah, we know that guy.
Yay, he's back at it. And Cirroc Lofton is not in this episode.
Nope.
I'm starting to get worried. I think we had the record run of Cirroc Lofton episodes, and now I think we're having the record run of no Cirroc Lofton episodes.
He's only contracted for so many a season, so they used them all up, and...
Right. Who knows? And from the show that brought you O'Brien Must Suffer, welcome to the latest episode of Bashir Must Question His Reality.
No, wait, what are you talking about? I mean, it's all perfectly real.
But Bashir is in the infirmary, busily downloading things into pads, when Odo stops by, wondering why he's working so late. Bashir says he's leaving tomorrow for a medical conference. Odo says, where is it? Risa? Casperia Prime? Bashir confirms Casperia. And I'm beginning to think that the Risa fad is over. It's all about Casperia these days.
We needed to find a place. It's like, we've been to Risa now, and it was, it was fairly, hedonistic, but what we need is like an even more. So
I mean,
gotta add that next.
I mean, Jamaharan, who cares? Wait till you try like Casperia Huron.
So Dax, I don't know if they've been there for their honeymoon yet. He could ask her some advice.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's a medical conference, so I don't think Dax recommended that maybe she recommended he find a medical conference on Casperia Prime.
Well, no, but she could recommend, some stuff that, like, good tourist attractions, restaurants,
Sure.
Sex dungeons, whatever.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the sex dungeons and the erotic mazes. Then Chief O'Brien comes in with yet another dislocated shoulder from kayaking. This goes back to like Next Gen, doesn't it?
Yes, it's we first saw this on Next Gen, and I feel like it was in some way relevant to that episode also.
Yeah, I can't remember what episode that was.
It was the episode Transfigurations where it first came up, and then apparently in the Deep Space Nine episode Shakar.
Ah. Which one was Transfigurations?
Is that the one where like they get the Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome? Hold on, let's see. Transfigurate. Oh no. Okay, Transfigurations is the Enterprise rescues a critically injured amnesiac who is undergoing a mysterious transformation.
Doesn't sound familiar off the top of my head.
Oh yeah. Okay, so O'Brien comes in with his dislocated shoulder, and this alien that they've met just like walks up and puts his hand on it and heals it, and they're like, "What the heck?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know."
Huh.
And then he eventually, like, I think Crusher like falls for this John Doe guy, and he like brings Worf back from the dead or something, and then like ascends to another plane of existence at the end, or some crazy crap.
Apparently, I need to go back and watch this episode.
I don't remember it being one of the best ones, but it did introduce us to O'Brien's love of kayaking. So
yeah, apparently that's all I remember from it. So, but yeah, O'Brien can't stay away. He hears the call of the river. So Bashir gives him a quick shot, admonishes him to stay away from the river for a while. Then he heads off to start his vacation time. But the next morning, when his alarm goes off, he feels strangely not refreshed. I mean, I feel that every morning, and
yeah, well, that's probably why no one in the audience questions
right?
it. They're just like, "Oh no, I've been there."
That was me this morning. Oh well, time to get going to my sunny vacation to Casperia Prime, he says.
I mean, sleep in the runabout on the way there, you know?
Yeah. He gets dressed and says goodbye to Kukalaka. But then Captain Sisko's voice comes on the intercom, ordering all senior officers to ops.
What if he just goes like, "Nah, I'm on my way out. That doesn't apply to me. I'm already like off the clock."
Yeah.
Just heads for the runabout.
It's like, my PTO started when I clocked out yesterday.
Yep.
I'm leaving. But apparently Starfleet Internal Affairs, A, exists, and B, has paid a visit to Star Trek Deep Space, or to Deep Space Nine.
Also to the show, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Sisko introduces everyone to Deputy Director Sloan, who is here to investigate a suspected security breach on the station.
They're always breaching security on the station, so I'm not surprised. Like, I'm not questioning it. Notes about Sloan here. Named after the Peter Breck character in the 1963 Samuel Fuller film Shock Corridor. So for all of you Shock Corridor junkies out there, there's that. But also interesting, he's wearing an unusual rank insignia of 4 pips with a line underneath of them, suggesting that he might be a fleet captain, or since he's introduced as Deputy Director of Internal Affairs and addressed as Director Sloan, maybe it's like some sort of director. Like it's unclear exactly what his rank is supposed to be.
Yeah, if I'd have to guess his rank is captain, but that line means he's a deputy director or something. I don't know. Also, he's played by William Sadler, perhaps best known as the Devil, or was he Death? From Bill and Ted.
Oh, from Bill and Ted. He was Death, right? I didn't
Death.
even remember he was in Bill and Ted until you said that, and then I was like, oh yeah, I totally remember this face now.
He was around the 90s for a while, so.
Now I'm going to pull up his IMDb. Like, I remember him from a few things. That wasn't the first one that leapt to my mind. But, like, Die Hard 2, I remember that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he's the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Was he the main villain in Die Hard 2?
Hold on. I think he was, yes.
Die Hard 2 is by far is he the one who does the weird dance in front of the mirror?
Now you're making me think of like Buffalo Bill, but he has like naked jumping jacks or something, right? I mean, hold on.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, he's the president in Iron Man 3. I'd forgotten that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to get back to the 90s to see what all he was up to. But this guy's a working man in Hollywood. He's just out there working it. Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight is the name of this movie or program that he was on. Shawshank Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Die Hard 2 as Stewart. Yes, Colonel William Stewart. Pretty sure.
Die Hard 2 is the Die Hard I have seen the least of what I consider the legitimate Die Hards.
Yeah.
Which is the first three.
Yes, the first three. The third one with Sam Jackson is like a standout. Kind of like how Indiana Jones, the third one with Sean Connery, is a standout. But, the first one in both cases is also like a classic.
Right.
And then the middle one is like, I mean, Die Hard in the Airport, whatever, Yeah. It's not like it's terrible or anything. It's just like, we when we were on our cruise, the TV in the room has very limited options on the boat that we're on. And so there's like movie 1 and movie 2. And other than that, it's like advertisements for stuff on the cruise ship or whatever. So one day we're just getting ready for bed, and I'm like, yeah, let's see what's on while I'm getting ready. And Die Hard 4 has just started, and my wife is like, what's this? I'm like, oh, that's Die Hard 4. And she's like, what? There's a fourth one? I was like, yeah, we don't need to watch that. She's like, why not? I thought you liked Die Hard. I'm like, well, not this Die Hard. She's like, it can't be that bad. And so then she insisted that we watch it, and she hated like every moment of it and complained like at the end, like, what was wrong with this movie? And I'm like, I told you it was not a good movie. Like, I don't know why you're telling me about all the bad stuff. I know. But
what? Yeah. Didn't Kevin Smith write that one, or he was in it, or something like that? Okay.
He's in it, and then Bruce Willis was like, hey, we should do something together. And that's how they end up making Cop Out, which forever soured Kevin Smith on Bruce Willis. He was like, oh, he was so horrible to work with as the director. He's got some great stories about that. But at least, and if, in the end, I'm like, hey, but one good thing about Die Hard 4, it's not Die Hard 5. Like, that's even worse.
To be fair to Die Hard 4, it does have Bruce Willis crashing a motorcycle into a helicopter.
It's a police car into a helicopter, but yes. Oh. When we got there, I was like, oh, hey, here's the only reason to watch this movie right here.
Right. Why isn't the movie this for 90 minutes?
So, yeah, spoiler for Die Hard 4. He crashes the car into a helicopter. See, we told you.
Good.
And Die Hard 2, Luther Sloan gets naked and does a workout or whatever.
Yeah, he does like a kung fu routine or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But speaking of, William Sadler, not who the producers originally considered for the role, according to Memory Alpha. They first considered casting Martin Sheen.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And Ira Bear says, we needed someone who had real power as an actor, who could keep you from jumping to a final conclusion about his character, as an explanation for why they chose William Sadler over Martin Sheen. I'm like, I guess burn Martin Sheen.
Yeah, I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that, like, Martin Sheen is a wildly famous movie star.
Yeah.
And
probably more expensive.
Yeah, wasn't he starring in The West Wing at the time?
I was just about to say, like, because one of the things that it showed that when I was looking through William Sadler's IMDb was he was on an episode of The West Wing, and I was like, oh, is that like coinciding with this? Because that would have made it hard to get Martin Sheen.
Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that was just some dream casting, and they were like, we might have to settle for William Sadler. Anyway, back to the episode. So yes, Starfleet has internal affairs, so I guess they're a police department or something.
Yeah, I don't.
So yeah, everybody has to go be confined to their quarters during this investigation that Sloan is doing. Oh, and obviously you're not going to that conference, Dr. Bashir.
Yeah, he's got the fun line. It's like, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, since the last time you were going to go, you got taken prisoner by the Dominion. And the irony being that he got taken prisoner by someone on his way to a medical conference in this episode. But there's a moment here as Bashir and the group are walking out of ops and being sent off to their quarters. Bashir like drags his hand along the center console thing in ops and appears to be like flipping off either like Sloan or the camera.
Huh.
And the note in here says, Bashir appears to, quote, flip the bird to Sloan as he leaves ops after the initial meeting. This happens after Sloan tells Bashir that Starfleet Medical already knows he won't be there. Due to the lack of any official acknowledgement, it appears this was not expected or noticed during the filming, though it seems intentional. So I had to go back and watch that moment in the episode, and I'm like, seems intentional could mean a lot of things. Like, he definitely intentionally drags his hand along there. I'm not sure that he's intentionally going, let me stick my middle finger as what I'm dragging along the console to flip the guy off. But it does happen.
Could be a case of Memory Alpha doing a little bit of interpretation.
Yeah.
Back in his quarters, Bashir tries to order some hot buttered scones with jam from the replicator, but gets nothing. Then he takes his pads out of his shoulder bag and sets them on the coffee table, but he drops a stylus, which rolls under the couch. When he goes to get it, one of the internal affairs people shows up and tells him that Director Sloan wants to talk to him in the wardroom.
And I don't know if it's just in my mind that she should be suspicious that a potential traitor appears to be hiding something under his couch, or if she actually looked suspicious of this. But either way, it doesn't appear that, like, when he comes back, he's like, somebody's been in here, like, moving my stuff around. But he finds the stylus right where he dropped it, which indicates that they didn't look under there for something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing it just wasn't part of his program that he would drop the stylus. I don't know. This whole program does not seem very well programmed, but... So yeah, on their way to the wardroom, some security officers run past them in the corridor. Bashir is like, what's that all about? And his escort says, don't worry about that. It means nothing, and it won't come up again this episode or ever.
Yeah,
because none of this is real. Oh, dang it, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Even considering that, like, it's not real, if that's indicating or hinting at some sort of side plot, it never does come back.
Right.
So I'm like, what was happening?
Is that some sort of, like, side quest he was supposed to go on? Or... But Bashir arrives at the wardroom where Sloan apologizes for making him miss his conference. And then, as you said, Sloan points out last time you went to a medical conference, he got kidnapped by the Dominion. He's read the report, and he just can't imagine how terrible that must have been. And he's also read about Bashir's work with the crazy people from the Institute. He's very impressed. And he says he actually once thought about becoming a doctor himself. And he's like, okay, anyway, that's all I need. Thanks for stopping by. Don't worry about the fact that I didn't ask you any questions. But then Bashir says, hey, if I'm trapped in my quarters, can you fix the replicator so I can get some breakfast? And Sloan says they had to turn off all the replicators so nobody would replicate anything sneaky. But I'll take your breakfast order. So Bashir orders his hot buttered scones. And he's about to leave when Sloan says... oh, by the way, one more thing.
Yep, he's going to Columbo it.
Right. One more thing, then nothing, I guess, because still the only thing I've asked you is what you want for breakfast. But were you assigned to work with those genetically engineered people, or did you volunteer? And Bashir says, I volunteered. And he's like, oh, okay, have a good one.
I already have that in my notes, obviously, but
right.
I had to throw you some sort of softball question. And also... if I'm Bashir, like, way to turn off the replicators, I'd be like, I mean, couldn't you just have, like, secretly monitored the replicators? And then if someone did replicate something sneaky, you would have been like, aha, there's the traitor.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is part of an interrogation technique to keep him, like, hungry or something.
Well, I'm sure it is. There's no reason to give him the wrong breakfast.
Right.
Or maybe in the holodeck, the replicators can't replicate for some reason.
Or just this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Later, Bashir is waiting in his quarters when his breakfast finally arrives, but to his disappointment, all he has is a big plate of gach. Apparently, they've mixed up his and Worf's breakfast orders.
Which, I was like, if you've been to the Klingon restaurant plenty of times, if you were hungry, you would eat that gach. Right. His excuse is like, it's a bit early for gach.
Yeah, it's too early for gach. So, okay. Then he looks over and notices that the pads he took out of his bag earlier are now back in the bag. He reaches under the couch and finds the stylus he dropped. Also, Kukulaka is now laying down, and Kukulaka never naps in the afternoon.
I love the idea that if someone was in here investigating his quarters, they'd be like, and what's up with this bear?
So, it's just a bear. put him down. Was he laying down or sitting up? I don't remember. Then Bashir's computer chirps. It's a video call from Chief O'Brien, so they didn't disable that.
No. Well, I mean, O'Brien, he could get around it if he wanted to.
Yeah, true. O'Brien, if he was real, would probably have like all kinds of great food in his quarters too. He'd be like, "Oh man, I got so many hot buttered scones."
Well, I mean, his quarters also, I guess Molly and Keiko are gone, we've been told. But it's like, he does live with other people. They can't, like, stop them from eating, can they?
True. Is Keiko and family even here? I can't keep track.
Yeah, we have no idea what the status is currently.
So yeah, it's Chief O'Brien calling. Miles warns Julian that Sloane grilled him for 2 straight hours. All about Bashir.
When that was, who knows? Because
right,
like we're given to indicate that Bashir just saw Sloane, but O'Brien says that he just got done talking to Sloane. So I don't know. Again,
this computer simulation is just not well thought out. Then the internal affairs people show back up to the door and tell him that Sloane wants to talk to him again. Back in the wardroom, Sloane asks the doctor if he got his breakfast, and he just says, "Yes, thank you." Sloane is like, "Yeah, sorry, I realized that earlier I forgot to ask you any questions." And then he starts asking about Julian's imprisonment with the Dominion, pointing out that Martok says he was separated from him for a while. And Bashir's like, "Well, I was in solitary confinement for 5 days." "But," says Sloane, "Martok says it was 7 days. Why would he lie about that?" Well, maybe...
I do like... I do like Bashir's excuse that it's like, the Klingons do not handle, like, imprisonment as well as we do, so it's totally understandable that he wouldn't have kept track of the days perfectly.
Yeah, a normal human being would have kept an exact record of how many days it was, according to his logic. But, yeah, I think maybe just Martok wasn't, like, you know, marking the days, waiting for him to come back, and probably had other stuff to worry about, and then estimated later, but...
Almost certainly, unless this is all a lie.
Right.
Which is possible.
It's very possible.
Although this is where we find out that Bashir was held captive for 37 days exactly, which is what we were using back when the fake Bashir was on the station.
Oh, yeah. I remember that whole thing.
Yeah.
When we were keeping track of the days and not explaining why we were doing it.
Yep.
So,
classic Undeclared Bajor.
Oh, yeah. Those were the days. But Sloane says, "Okay, isn't it weird that the Jem'Hadar just left your runabout in orbit in perfect working condition so you could easily escape?"
Yes.
And Bashir's like, "What? No, you see, well, okay, yeah, that is a little weird now that I think about it."
Yeah, I feel like that they're just trying to, like, cover a plot hole from that episode by calling it out. But Bashir is not really doing any favors by trying to argue that it was completely reasonable.
Right.
And I'm just like, well, no, if you thought about it for a second, you would be like, yeah, that is kind of weird. I guess Jem'Hadar gonna Jem'Hadar.
It's like, no, it makes perfect sense. It's like, no, it doesn't. It's like, they didn't think that we'd be able to get up there. It's like, well, why did they need it up there at all?
Yeah, like, there's no reason to leave it there.
But Sloane suggests maybe they let him go so he could come back and start secretly working for them.
The biggest issue with that claim, and what Bashir should point out, is that they don't need him to come back and work for them as Bashir. They already had a Bashir working for them while he was in prison there. And, in fact, his coming back sabotages their plan, I guess... Is that what triggers them to figure out that Bashir is a changeling? I don't even remember for sure.
Well, I mean, they figure it out, yeah, because he comes back and, Worf and Garrick show up and break him out. So maybe that was the whole thing. Like, they deliberately took Worf and Garrick to the exact same prison barracks where he was being held, and then provided them the means to escape. And then... they used the fact that he uncovered the changeling to kind of like cast further suspicion away from himself.
But there was no suspicion on him in the first place. And they had the big plan that they were going to use to, like, destroy the Bajoran sun. Like, like, things went really against the Dominion because Bashir made it back. It makes no sense for them to claim this.
You just got to understand, the Dominion has like plans within plans, like wheels within wheels. It's all carefully thought out, like 5D chess. Just
now, what to me makes more sense would have been, hey Sloan, maybe your entire premise is completely valid, except that they didn't need me, the guy who they already had a changeling of, working. They wanted one of the other guys in the barracks to be saved. Like, probably not Martok. They already had a changeling Martok for most of that time too. But maybe it was that Breen guy or that Romulan chick. Maybe one of them was they're dead now, but
I mean, maybe it's everybody. Who knows?
Maybe it was an Abrantane, the guy who figured out that there was a thing in the wall and figured out how to use it to make a communication device.
Yeah. And then Sloan is like, have you ever heard of engrammatic dissociation? It's theorized some people might have the ability to hide secrets from their own mind. So they do one thing, but think about another. And based on this theory, that it sounds like I heard on a podcast or something, I think you have that power, and you're using it to work as a Dominion spy without even knowing it. And Bashir is just like, that's incredibly dumb. I'm leaving. Talk to my lawyer.
Yeah.
But Sloan's nice guy act immediately drops, and he's like, you think you're so smart? I'm going to find the evidence and lock you away. Then he has Bashir perp walked down the promenade to the security office.
For some reason.
Right? Where Odo is mysteriously absent. And one of the guards takes off his handcuffs and asks him if they were too tight. And Bashir is like, yeah, I guess. And the guard is like, good. So I think this guard has a fetish for too tight handcuffs.
He's like, a lot of my friends died at that one place.
Right? It's like, I've also been in battles and I was captured by the Dominion, but whatever.
And she's like, I believe you lost a lot of friends too, but your friends were Jem'Hadar. And it's like, I mean, he wasn't really with the Dominion long enough to make a bunch of Jem'Hadar friends. I'm just saying.
Right. At 37 days, you can make some friends in that time, I guess. So once the doctor is locked up, Sisko pays him a visit. He says Odo did a little checking and found out that Sloane's son was killed in a Dominion attack. Maybe he thinks I gave the Dominion the information that led to the attack, says Bashir.
And then Sloane's like, yes, I do. And everyone's like,
Sloane's
wait, what?
That's exactly what I think, stepping out of the shadows.
He's good at that.
It's like, oh, shoot, we should have checked if he was over there.
Well, it's like, the guy's like, I'm going to go tell Director Sloan. And Sisko's like, good, you go do that. But then it seems that Director Sloan was just already here. So I don't know.
So did you not see him standing there the whole time, Bashir?
This might be a good moment to point out that this is where I feel like you start to notice that this episode has no B story. But of course, it would be difficult to have a B story when all of the other characters are holograms.
Right.
Like, they're not going to be off having like a wacky Jake and Nog adventure when it's Jake and Nog holograms.
Yeah, they're starting to do some clues. Like, first of all, I think we only ever got that one establishing shot of the station, right?
Yeah, you might be right.
Although I think that was technically when Bashir was already kidnapped, but whatever. And also I noticed, like, when he's getting walked down the promenade and, like, Kira and Quark are having their little side conversation, the camera work is very careful to show, like, Bashir in the foreground at all times. So it's like he's overhearing this conversation while they're having it. Like, two holograms aren't just having this conversation out of his earshot. Some kind of careful directing by Michael Dorn, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I like Michael Dorn comments in here. It's like, the show is very Kafka-esque. Sid did some wonderful acting, and I thought that Bill Sadler just did a fantastic job too. He was a dream to work with, just a dream. He's a really good actor, so I couldn't go wrong.
Nice.
I do like that it's clear that despite his credit now being Alexander Siddig, like, he still goes by his name of, like, Siddig El Fadil, so people call him Sid.
Right. So anyway, yeah, Cisco says, well, don't you think that it's a conflict of interest that your son was killed by the Dominion? And then Sloan is like, I mean, maybe, but when has that ever been an issue on Star Trek?
It's like, it makes me more interested, actually. It's like, well, yeah, that's what I meant. Shut up.
I mean, yeah, and conflict of interest isn't exactly, like, the right phrase. Like, it'd be more of a conflict of interest if, like, Bashir was his son. But, yeah, whatever. Cisco says he wants to talk to Dr. Bashir alone, and Sloan says, nobody can talk to the prisoner alone without my permission. And Cisco's like, excuse me, who's the commander of Deep Space Nine? Is it Captain Sloan? No, it's Captain Cisco. And then Sloan's like, oh, interesting point. And then he leaves. And Cisco turns to Bashir and is like, okay, let's talk before he realizes he can just take you off the station.
It's fun that Sloan lets himself get slapped down by a hologram here.
Right? It's all part of the program. Later, they're back in the wardroom, and Sloan interrogates Julian about the incidents of the episode Hippocratic Oath.
Yep.
And he's like, do you feel special sympathy for the Jem'Hadar because they're also genetically engineered? And Cisco says, wait, what's the point of this? That happened before Bashir was captured. And then Bashir is like, well, to be fair, it was after the time that you and me were both captured by the Dominion and put in that mind matrix thing. And Cisco's like, shh. But Sloan says, if anything, it shows that Bashir was already sympathetic to the Dominion. I mean, in that situation, he was trying to help some people defect from the Dominion, but whatever.
Yeah, like, I feel like that would have been a good idea to point out, where it's like, no, I was trying to undermine the military strength of the Dominion by taking away their slave battle force. Yeah,
curing the Ketracel White addiction would be a devastating blow to the Dominion. It would not help them. So then Sloan gets back to the subject of the genetically engineered misfits. And he's like, isn't it kind of weird that you gave them secret Starfleet intelligence files and then tried to help them convince the Federation to surrender to the Dominion?
Yes.
And Bashir's like, yeah, in hindsight, I guess that was kind of weird, but... And then Cisco says, okay, the Doctor has made some questionable decisions, but you don't have any evidence that he's a spy. And he plays the old, well, the fact that I can't find evidence is just proof of his spy-like skill at covering his tracks.
I like that his evidence is like, well, but there's a lot of these questionable things. And
right.
So...
Two. No, there's two, but...
He's like, if it was one or two, you might... be right, Captain, but there's like three. So, I mean, he's clearly guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, what about that whole thing where you hid your genetically engineered background from everyone? And Cisco says, well, eventually he fessed up to that, so that doesn't count. But Sloan is like, oh yeah, why did he do that? And then Bashir is like, okay, look, what happened was the guy who made the holographic doctor from Voyager also made a hologram of me. And then my parents thought the hologram was me, and they just started rambling on about the genetic engineering thing, even though the hologram couldn't even talk. And he's like, oh, I see your point. Yeah, I probably would not have admitted it if that didn't happen.
Well, yeah, see, the thing is, he's not wrong. And he's like, you spent all these years lying to your captain, and he's trying to make it personal. Like, he lied to you, Cisco. Are you going to let him get away with that? But it's like, what do you expect? I was genetically engineered. I had no say in that. And by the time I knew the situation, it was lie or go to jail.
Right.
What would you do in that situation, Mr. Sloan? Would you be like, well, I feel bad about lying to my captain. I guess I'll go to jail.
But was it this life of lies that made him so good at being a spy?
And I guess Sloan is, for the end of the episode purposes, he's really just selling himself on recruiting Bashir here. Where he's like, yes, he is good at lying and spying. This could be really useful.
Yeah. So yeah, back at the holding cell, Cisco's like, okay, so that interrogation didn't go great, but Julian, don't you have to admit the possibility that you're using secret brain powers to repress your knowledge of being a spy or whatever? And then Bashir's like, wait, since when does he call me Julian?
Yeah, that's what stood out to me. I'm like, this is where we should start questioning things for sure.
Right. Later, Julian is sleeping in a cell when Sloane wakes him up and is like, "Oh my god, I'm so dumb. I can just take you to a different space station, can't I? Where Sisko isn't the commander." "Yeah, let's do that." And he gives the doctor one last chance to sign a confession, but Bashir says to throw the confession out the nearest airlock.
Which that's a bold move here.
Right.
When Bashir has not admitted to the least possibility of wrongdoing yet, to be like, well, you could sign this confession.
Right.
Like, what?
It's worth a try,
I'll get you that breakfast you wanted. All you gotta do is confess.
Also, the confession can't breathe, so it would be just as effective to throw it in the trash, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, maybe pads don't handle the extreme temperatures in space well. Who knows?
It's like the harsh vacuum of space would cause the pad to short out, causing the confession to get erased. So there.
I mean, I think what it really is that Michael Dorn isn't allowed to let him say, "Stick the confession up your ass."
Right. They thought of a million ways they could get away with that, but they just couldn't. Then that guy who really likes handcuffs comes up and is like, "All right, get ready for some cuffing." But then Bashir is enveloped in the distinctive gold sparkly glow of a Cardassian transporter and finds himself on a ship face to face with Weyoun, who tells him, "Welcome home, spy." "I'm not a spy," says Bashir.
Yes, you are.
"Oh yeah," says Weyoun, "you have that memory thing. Remember how we convinced you that the Federation couldn't win the war and you came over to our side? Here, have some hot buttered scones with jam, the same thing you asked me for way back then." And then Bashir's like, "No, I don't remember that, and I feel like I need to point out I eat things other than hot buttered scones."
No, that's all he ever orders.
Right. Then Bashir has a brainwave. He's like, "Wait, why would you and Sloane both be trying to convince me that I'm a spy? Sloane must be a spy." Which, that's a little bit of a leap, but...
Well, no, I get it. It's just like, Sloane, it seems to be a personal crusade to make Bashir out to be a spy. And then the other side is like, yes, you are a spy. Like, either there is some connection here or they're right, and he's not going to admit the possibility that they're right. So there must be some connection between the two.
True. It is a pretty hard to ignore, like, congruence, so...
But, yeah, if this had been legit, and Sloane was the traitor, like, he could have picked easier targets than Bashir to try to, like, put it on.
Like, Odo, or...
I mean, Odo is the it's the super easy one, right? Like, he can't even take a test to prove he's not a changeling, because he is a changeling. Like, there's no proof from day to day that Odo is the Odo that was here yesterday.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, when you think about it, Odo really is, like, the number one perfect person to replace.
Yeah.
How come the Dominion never thought of that? But...
Or maybe they did.
Oh my gosh,
and
spoilers.
we just don't know it yet. Have we been tracking how many days Odo has been around?
Right. Let's see, this episode was...
These days don't count. No, because this is hologram Odo.
Oh, true. But still, regular Odo was back on the station doing something. I don't know.
True, but we don't know how long, because the days that are passing don't seem to be actual days. Like, every time Bashir falls asleep, they're like 10 minutes later they wake him up. So
True. Anyway, Bashir doesn't really have time to think all this through, because alarms start to sound, and then Worf and Kira beam onto the ship and grab him and beam him off. And they take him to the bridge of the Defiant, where Sisko demands to know what's going on. And Bashir tries pitching his Sloane as a spy theory, but Sisko doesn't want to hear it. Then Worf says, "You have ran out of excuses, Doctor." It's like, wait, does Worf always use such bad grammar?
Well, he's a Klingon, obviously.
Right. Is whoever made this program racist against Klingons?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Is this a Welcome to Earth situation? Which, go back and watch that movie. He says Earth pretty clearly.
He does, and I've 100% like, I was like, oh, one day I'm like, oh, somebody made a comment of something. I'm like, oh, I need to respond with like that Will Smith Welcome to Earth clip. And I go out to YouTube and I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, when you see that and you've been thinking it's Welcome to Earth, you start to be like, ooh.
You got like Mandela effect going on.
It's like, I hope that's a Mandela effect, because otherwise I feel a little racist. Yeah, in fact, everyone is now convinced that Julian is a spy. Even Miles jerks away from him when Julian tries putting a hand on his shoulder. Twists away with remarkable ease and flexibility for a man who dislocated his shoulder yesterday. Didn't you hurt your shoulder playing spring ball? Tests Bashir. It's better now, says Miles. So, A+ improvising there, hologram Miles.
Yep. I love that. It's like, yeah, but it's better.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Yeah, that makes all the sense. Alrighty.
And you, Data, if we fly to Outpost 23 at Warp 7, how fast would we get there? No. But anyway, the bridge of the Defiant vanishes, and Bashir is alone on the holodeck. Oh, and Sloan is also there, along with two people who are weirdly not his two sidekicks we've been seeing all episode. So
yeah, I don't know.
They're like, can we play too? And he's like, no.
No, I only holograms. I need... These guys look kind of like big bruiser guys to be relatable, maybe, in the program. So
true, maybe.
You got like a woman and a smaller guy than these guys. I don't know. Maybe there was some logic there. The holodeck here is the Star Trek Voyager holodeck set.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Also, there's a quote from costume designer Robert Blackman where about the outfits that the Section 31 guys are wearing. He says, Ira asked for dark, black, severe, hostile-looking garments. Well, that's black leather.
Yeah, that's my next joke, is that they're wearing black leather and they're on their way to a Matrix costume party.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sloan reveals that this was all a test to see if Bashir was a spy. They've even been tracking his brain waves or something with a little implant thing. But now they're pretty convinced he's not a spy. Bashir asks Sloan who he really works for, and he says Starfleet Intelligence, but not Internal Affairs. He works for Section 31.
So I guess Internal Affairs is a division of Starfleet Intelligence, but so is Section 31. Like, how many divisions does Starfleet Intelligence have?
Right. Well, I suspect that maybe it's called Section 31 because it's Section 31 of the Federation Charter that, created it.
Well, yeah, that's stated explicitly. Hold on. It's in the Starfleet Charter. Article 14, Section 31 of the Starfleet Charter allowed for extraordinary measures to be taken in times of extreme threat.
Ah, okay. But yeah, Bashir is like, never heard of it. What does Section 31 do? He says, we search out and identify threats to the Federation. And Bashir accusingly is like, and once they're identified? And Sloan is like, we deal with them? I feel like this by itself is not a shocking or controversial concept.
Yeah.
But Sloan goes on to explain that Section 31 functions autonomously and doesn't report to anybody, which kind of raises the question of how they know they're really working for the Federation, or how can they ever prove that they are who they say they are?
You've just seen too much Alias, is what
right, I know. I'm like, this is an SD6 situation waiting to happen.
But, I mean, I guess it depends on how much, independent action any particular operative is allowed. Because as long as they're, if Sloan has a boss, presumably, but as long as, Sloan is doing whatever he does for what he considers to be the betterment of the Federation, then even if his boss isn't necessarily working for that purpose, he may still be accomplishing what he is setting out to accomplish.
And wait, who's the boss of SD6?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, get out the yarn board.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. They must have a contact person in the Federation, or some way to get resources and contacts and intel and stuff like that.
They do seem to have lots of resources and things based on what we see here.
All right. They apparently have a ship with a holodeck, so you can't just go grab one of those out of the Starfleet parking lot. So
well, and they have, if only the the information resources where they have all this top secret information about stuff that Bashir's done. I'm sure that like Martok's debriefing about the prison camp is not public knowledge or whatever in the Federation.
And I like to think that not any old schmo could just like pretend to be Starfleet Internal Affairs and walk into Deep Space Nine.
Yep. Yeah.
And be like,
just walk up to Cisco and be like, hey, oh, of course that didn't actually happen. So,
true. Yeah, of course. What am I thinking? So, yeah, that point is invalid.
It's hard to have a nitpick of the week when everything was fake.
Right. Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before in like It Was All a Dream episodes where anything that doesn't make sense is kind of like easily explained away by the fact that it was all a kind of badly programmed simulation.
I like, there's like, we're not doing it. I haven't watched much of Discovery, but apparently like they really expand on some Section 31 stuff in Discovery.
Like and Section 31 lore.
Yeah, and like a bunch, and in Enterprise some. I don't think I saw the parts of Enterprise with Section 31 in there, but it pops up like once or twice in Lower Decks, which I have seen, and I don't know where it was introduced. I think it may have been Discovery, but there's like this Delta design for Section 31 that looks like the normal Starfleet Delta, but like it's largely black with a little bit of gray on the side. And there's an episode of Lower Decks where like this person gets recruited into Section 31 and they give him his like this new comm badge. And he's like, if we're a super secret organization, like why do we have a different comm badge that's like clearly distinguishable? And they're like, hey, shut up. So it's fun. But
yeah. It's like, why do they have like black leather outfits?
Yeah, exactly. Like, shouldn't you be dressed like normal Starfleet people if you're within Starfleet working? I don't know.
So, anyway, yeah, Sloan explains, Section 31 was founded, I think he says Federation Charter, but, I don't know. I don't know if there's a difference between the Federation Charter and the Starfleet Charter, honestly.
I do not know. That may be another thing that comes up in Enterprise, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, also if it's in the charter, shouldn't everybody know about it? But whatever. But I guess that wording you read is kind of vague enough that...
yeah, so like you could interpret that lots of ways.
Yeah. What does shall not be infringed mean? What does make no law respecting the establishment of religion mean? Couldn't you just say establishing religion? Anyway. But yeah, Bashir says, I don't know, this all sounds really morally questionable. And then Sloan's like, yeah, pretty cool, huh? Want to join? And then Sloan makes the argument that Bashir has probably saved thousands of people in his career, and none of them probably care that he lied to get into medical school. He's living proof that the ends justify the means.
Yeah, I do love the complete 180 in Sloan's character here, where he's like, you lied to your captain and stuff. And he's like, no, Dad, that's 100% what we want is that.
No, bravo. That was good. Yeah, come with us and do more stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Bashir is like, whoa, hold on. I mean, I was willing to subject the Federation to generations of Dominion rule in hopes that the Federation would eventually come back stronger. But this ends justify the means thing just isn't for me. I'm out. And by the way, I don't like scones that much.
I feel like it doesn't feel realistic to me that he has such a strong knee-jerk reaction against it. Like, I feel like that Bashir would be maybe not on board, but at least intrigued by this thought for a minute. Then again, they just did spend like a couple days torturing him, and so it might be more personal.
He's hungry and sleep deprived too, so So Bashir asks Sloan what he'll do if he exposes him, and Sloan says, "I'm not too worried about it."
Yeah.
And then they hyperspray Bashir and send him back to Deep Space Nine. Back home, Bashir meets with Kira, Odo, and Cisco about the Sloan situation.
Yeah, why Kira and Odo are the people of choice for this? I guess we know they're probably not members of Section 31. They're not even in Starfleet.
True.
You can't trust like the Chief or Worf with this.
I mean, Worf is busy directing, so
that's true.
Yeah, Although logically, this seems like the kind of thing you might want to bring Worf in on, but I don't know.
Yeah, isn't this like exactly his ballywhack, as it were?
Right. Well, Odo thinks the whole thing is, Odo thinks it's clever that they used the conference to cover for the fact that Bashir is missing, but nobody can figure out how they got Bashir off the station. They must have some kind of secret transporter technology or something. Sisko says, I called Starfleet Command, and they said there's no Deputy Director Sloan anywhere in Starfleet. And when I asked about Section 31, they just said, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I guess there's Section 31 has some weird rule that you can't lie about their existence.
Yeah, apparently it's just, a thing where people high up know, and they're just like, we're not going to stop them. We like what they're doing, but I don't want to act like I'm involved in any way. So,
right, yeah, like maybe like when you become an admiral and get into Starfleet Command, you're like, oh, by the way, there's these guys, Section 31.
Yep,
they just kind of do stuff.
Just go with it.
Yeah. So Bashir says he can't believe something like Section 31 exists in the Federation, and Odo is like, I don't know, sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, this is 100% the kind of thing that we've talked about it before, how Odo views these things. Yeah. He would totally be on board with this, and really, they probably should have tried to recruit him instead.
Right.
And maybe the problem really is that he's the perfect potential spy for the Dominion, and they're like, well, we're not going to risk that.
Right.
But Odo would have been on board.
Yeah. In fact, I think Odo basically is a Section 31 unto himself. Like, he has his own network of, like, informants and stuff out there. So.
True.
But Bashir is like, but I thought that what makes the Federation so great is that we don't do stuff like that. And just a little editor's note here. These people don't yet have a single example of something shady that Section 31 has actually done.
I mean, they kidnapped Bashir.
Other than their creative interrogation of Bashir.
Yeah, like, that's pretty messed up.
I guess. I mean, I wouldn't be, like, if it just turned out they were just regular, like, Starfleet internal affairs, I wouldn't be that shocked, though.
Yeah, okay. That's a fair point. But Sloan basically says, it's like, oh, we protect the Federation by whatever means necessary. You know that when somebody says that, it's not, like, good stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, probably.
It's like, we send strongly worded letters. What did you think I meant?
It's like, stop threatening the Federation. We don't like it. It's not nice. Kira suggests they should try tracking down Sloan. But Sisko is like, we don't have to track him down. I bet he'll be back to try recruiting Bashir again. And this time, you should say yes. And hopefully he's not a competent enough intelligence officer that he would immediately suspect you.
Bashir should have just said yes in the first place. Like, I don't know what you get out of saying no at that point. Like, whether you want to bring them down or not, saying no means you have less information to work with, as opposed to saying yes for whatever purpose you want to use that information. True. So, like, yes, this is... I do like the way Sisko plays that. He's like, no, Kira, work smarter, not harder.
Right. Although, what would have happened if he said yes? Like, would he immediately have to go off on his new life of Section 31? Like,
I don't think so.
Can he go home and get his stuff first? Or
I feel like Sloan was like, you're perfectly positioned to like be a good, a useful operative for us. I feel like he would have been left in place.
But, yeah, Sisko's like, just think. Members of Starfleet out there, operating outside the chain of command, independently making furtive, morally gray moves under the precept of the ends justify the means. We just can't be having it.
Yeah, you tell him, Sisko.
Next week on Star Trek DS9. No, but the end.
Honestly, the way that we see it here, I don't have the problem with Section 31 that they do. Of course, we don't know that much about them or exactly what they do. Like you pointed out, we don't know anything specific, really. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of with Odo to some extent, where I'm like, if the Romulans have the Tal Shiar and the Cardassians have the Obsidian Order and the Klingons even have the Klingon intelligence, which kind of sucks, is what we've established. The Federation probably needs something to counter that.
True. I mean, I guess it all depends on like what these things are.
Yeah.
Like, the CIA has had all kinds of groups like this that have done some pretty bad things. Like, overthrowing the democratically elected government in Iran and other places, allegedly committing assassinations.
Or attempted assassinations and,
right.
Bay of Pigsing things.
Yeah, like, it's, the ends justify the means but you kind of need to know what those ends and what those means are.
Well, and
like, is the ends like 5 cents cheaper on gas? Then I think we need to limit the means we get for that.
Well, that's fair. Part of the problem is that it's hard to, you can say, here's the end that we're after, but as we've learned in the real political world, it's hard to predict where you're going to go after you accomplish what you want. Like, we want to overthrow this government because we don't like them. Okay, fine. But what comes after that? And a lot of times it is worse. So,
right.
But anyway, fun facts about this storyline and about Section 31. I want to start with, we've talked before about the rivalry between Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5 and accusations of potential plagiarism being thrown around. Apparently both ways, according to this note. Babylon 5, 3 years before this, introduced a shadowy secret organization called Bureau 13. And then Deep Space Nine comes out with Section 31, where you reverse those two numbers. So...
yeah, that's pretty bad.
It seems a little bit shady. Of course, Babylon 5 never got much use out of Bureau 13, although I read one thing that was like, maybe that was because of Section 31. They're like, we're going to go a different direction with this. But I don't the exact timing of it is possibly questionable. But anyway, that's... that just adds fire to, or fuel to the fire, rather, of that particular issue. What else? We got Renee Ashvaria about this episode saying, we put something entirely new into the mix, the idea of Section 31. We're eager to follow it up. Michael Dorn did a terrific job directing it. Sid, I thought, was spot on. The guest star, Bill Sadler, was just perfection. I think it was one of the most successful episodes. And I like how excited he is to follow up on it. It's a shame that we got like a season and some change left in the show at this point. Like, they didn't leave themselves a lot of time. If they'd introduced Section 31 in like season 2, we really could have gone places with it. But we may just not get that chance in Deep Space Nine. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Only the future will tell.
This note says, the idea for Section 31 was Ira Stephen Bear's culmination of his attempts to look into the darker aspects of the utopia created by Gene Roddenberry, to look under the surface of the idyllic Federation and see if everything really was perfect as it appeared to be. And he's like, he began this with the Maquis Part 2 and went on, and it just lists all the episodes for that kind of thing. But Section 31 was the culmination of this process.
Sure.
A covert organization within Starfleet who could be said to be the, quote, weasels under the coffee table, to which Bear referred in relation to the Maquis Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Section 31 represents one of Deep Space Nine's most controversial ideas, provoking debate among fans of both the original series and the Next Generation. So, it's out there.
Sure.
It is a very different thing from a lot of what we've seen before. In the past, if something like this was going on, it was because there were secret alien parasites in people's heads or something. But now it's just like, no, we just do this stuff.
Yep.
But you wouldn't know from that the eventual where this episode gets that the original concept for this episode was a comedic show about bureaucracy and paperwork.
Okay.
Or as Bradley Thompson puts it, dealing with the Department of Motor Vehicles on a Sunday. So the story was Bashir goes to a planet to do something really nice, like saving the lives of everyone on the whole planet or something. He parks his runabout in orbit, goes down, and when he finishes doing this whatever amazing thing, he finds out that his runabout has been towed and he has a parking ticket. So he has to go up against the bureaucracy on the planet. It was the ultimate genetically engineered human against the ultimate bureaucratic red tape.
Interesting concept.
Yeah.
It feels a little different for a Star Trek DS9 episode, but could be fun. I don't know.
Very different tone for sure than a lot of what we've seen. I just can't even picture a whole episode about like him having to try to get his runabout out of impound and get out of his parking ticket. And it's like, why don't you just pay the fee? And he's like, it's the principle of the thing. Also, I don't have money. I just saved your whole planet. And the person's like, yeah, I don't care, man. I'm doing my job. No, it's weird. So Thompson and Weddle pitched this idea to Ira Steven Behr as a humorous version of the 1925 Franz Kafka novel, The Trial. And Ira Steven Behr's like, okay, I like where we're going. I like everything you're doing. But what if we changed it and did my idea instead, and then it could be really good? And so he's like, let's make it... There's a covert organization within Starfleet who's decided Bashir is a Dominion spy and interrogates him by means of an elaborate holodeck program. And Thompson says it stopped being a romp and became a nightmare.
Obviously, that's the next logical step from your idea, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Just taking it to where it needs to go.
Oh,
and that reminds me. I was looking through Memory Alpha for episodes where Dr. Bashir has been in basically it was all a dream situations.
Sure.
And I stumbled across an article called Unproduced Episodes of Star Trek DS9.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So we need to cover that at some point. Just put a thumbtack in that for now. But
it's like Memory Alpha has those kind of things where the unproduced episodes, undeveloped episodes, but they've also got like the article about people who almost guest starred in episodes.
Oh, nice.
And it's just it's like the wackiest stuff, but it's fun.
Fun. All right, so let's go ahead and review the episode. What do you think of the episode Inquisition?
Okay, so there's different aspects to this, which some I like, some I really don't like. So you pointed out that this is not the first Bashir, it was all a dream sort of thing. And those episodes, those stories often feel like a waste of time to me. Yeah. Where I'm like, we just watched an hour of stuff that didn't actually happen. So why should I care? There's some of that here. The fact that we get something out of it that will continue on, not even just in Deep Space Nine, but like, this is the introduction of a thing that like reverberates through the future of Star Trek from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. I like the idea of Section 31. I like introducing this. I like this concept that we're introducing here. There's a lot of play. I don't know that they've always done the best that they could with it. I think that they've made some mistakes using it in the future of Star Trek, but it has a lot of potential at this point to make for some really good stories. So, despite the fact that we wasted our time watching a bunch of stuff that didn't happen, it plants a seed that can get used moving forward and that has a lot of potential to get used well. I like that a lot. I think William Sadler did a good job. I totally bought his performance.
Sure.
As like Deputy Director Sloan, but then just as easily buy his performance as Covert Operative Sloan. Like, he makes that turn on a dime and he does it well, even though he's, well, as I pointed out, playing almost 180 to the previous opinions that he was so strongly apparently in favor of, right? I feel like he did a good job of that. I think that, and I pointed them out as we went through. I think that there's some logical problems with the way that a bunch of people address their supposed motives in this episode that I'm just like, I feel like the writing could have been better. And maybe it was the fact that it was apparently a very different story, and then Ira Steven Behr's like, no, you guys go back and write it as what I want it to be instead. And maybe that doesn't net you the best writing, right? So I have problems with the episode. I feel like most of it you can forget and throw out the window as long as you watch the last 5 minutes. That's all that really matters in the episode, right? Which, that's not a good thing to say about any episode, where 90% of it, crap, don't worry about it. There's some funny stuff, but overall, it's bringing more to the table as potential energy. Maybe that's the best metaphor. Than it is as like kinetic energy. So I'm not going to say I dislike it. It's going to be above the line, I guess, but only because of that, not because of anything the episode is in and of itself. So it's definitely a lieutenant commander and probably a pretty low one for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the concept of Section 31, like basically a CIA dirty tricks squad for the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that is very much in keeping with the themes of Deep Space Nine. I don't know if I'd call it a culmination, but it definitely fits in this show. So the problem is I don't feel like it's really explored at all in this show. Like there's like 2 lines of kind of debating the morality of that towards the end, and then that's kind of like all they do. But for the most part, the show is just a bunch of stuff that usually annoys me. So we got It's All a Dream, and it combines It's All a Dream with like some Starfleet busybody is coming and wrecking up somebody's life by like twisting around a bunch of stuff they've said and done to make them like seem bad or whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely not a new concept. You're right.
Right. Even though we, the audience, know the whole time that, it's like Worf going on trial. Like, we know the whole time this is bullshit.
Yeah, even when he gets abducted by Weyoun and Weyoun is like, "You've been a spy for us all along." I don't think anybody's going, "Oh my gosh, has he really?"
Right, and that's the thing is, I think the one opportunity this show had, because, this can be done well, like that episode with Riker where, he was, at first it seemed like he was being held by the Tal Shiar, and then he was actually being held by a weird alien kid.
Future Imperfect. Yeah.
Like you can do interesting things with concepts like this, but I think the main flaw of the episode is it's never played like this could even potentially be a thing. Like, even when Bashir goes over to Weyoun's ship, you could have played that to where he, at that moment, like, he starts to have doubts, like, the whole episode. He's like, wait, how well do I really know my own mind? Like, how well do I know, like, what activities I've been doing or whatever? And then, culminate when he goes over to Weyoun's ship and he's like, oh my gosh, is this really it? And then, because he's got the brilliant genetically engineered mind, he could have his Sherlock Holmes, you could have like this really low point of self-doubt, but then have his like Sherlock Holmes realization of all these little clues and piece it together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It could be done really well, but the way they play it, there's never a moment of doubt. There's like the briefest moment of doubt where he's like, wait, really? And then like, he's like, no. Wait a second. This is dumb. No.
Yeah. I think really the moment where Sisko's like, just think for a minute. Is it physically possible? Like, that would have been a perfect, and I thought at the time, like, Bashir could stop here and be like, I mean, I guess, and like really start to think about for the first time, like, is it possible? Like, am I fighting this too hard? I agree that there was room in there to definitely make the story they're trying to tell feel more real.
Right. And then, maybe they could put some stuff in there like, he's, someone has hacked into the computer and it's like, who was it? And then security footage shows it was Bashir. And he's like, what? I don't remember doing that. Or, stuff like that, where the show actually kind of makes a case that there could be some fire under the smoke or whatever. But, they never do it. We just know the whole time that this is a setup. And then at the end, when we get this twist, we're like, oh, okay, this is what it is. Whereas they could have played it like, oh my gosh, maybe this is a real thing. And then they hit us with this other twist. And we would have been like, ooh, I think that would have made it sell a little bit better. So overall, just like the scenes where Sloane is interrogating Bashir just feel frustrating because we know there's nothing to it. We know he's like twisting stuff. We've seen this stuff before on Star Trek. So, Even though it introduces Section 31, which may or may not be an important thing going forward, I don't know. But I can't put it above the line. Even though, like, you know, William Sadler is great. I think I just have to let it be a lieutenant. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Even though it feels like it feels like this should be a highly rated episode, but I mean, I don't think the episode earns that in any way, other than like maybe its place in Star Trek, you know, mythology or whatever. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because usually they do this cloak and dagger type stuff not bad on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Especially like, you know, if Odo's around or something.
Yeah.
But, although I gotta say, if Martin Sheen had been in the episode, I think that would have been something. Martin Sheen is just suddenly in Star Trek.
Yeah.
As this like bit part. Oh well. So anyway, what do we think about the title, Inquisition?
I think it fits what's going on for most of the episode pretty well, and it has the added benefit of if you're really trying to fool people, which as you pointed out, they could have done a better job of. But if you were really trying to fool people into thinking this is all real, the title's not going to give it away. It fits what's supposedly going on in the episode. I don't know that it's particularly clever. Like, it's not. We're not making a pun or any strange. We're not even as you pointed out. Like, Drumhead's kind of a better title because it's more obscure, which makes it more memorable, but it also fits what's going on in its. And so it's a better title in both of those ways. Here, it's like Inquisition is sort of generic enough that it could apply to multiple episodes. Like if you told me this episode is Inquisition, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But I would say that same thing about probably 5 other episodes of Deep Space Nine that we've watched. So the memorable factor is kind of way down there, I think. So it's an okay title.
I mean, maybe it's clever in the sense of it's a kind of generic and forgettable title for an episode that hinges around a big twist.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think that's pretty much all you could say about it. Otherwise, it's kind of, you know, basic and kind of meat and potatoes. So
yeah.
Anyway, probably should wrap it up there. So unless you have any final thoughts.
Nope, I'm good.
All right. So yep. That's our discussion of Inquisition. Thank you for listening. If you like that one, maybe you'll like our discussion of Distant Voices. I feel like I'm always recommending like our discussions of the worst episodes, but
well, there's so many episodes that Sloan references in this one.
True.
That are not bad. Where Bashir does all this crazy stuff, like
Hippocratic Oath.
Hippocratic Oath. That's not the top of my list. I was thinking more the ones where he's in the prison camp. Those are real good.
Oh yeah. The Inferno by Inferno's Light and In Purgatory's Shadow. Those are those ones, right?
Yeah. See if they mention how many days he was in solitary confinement when he shows up.
Mm-hmm. And the one with the people, what was it called? The statistical probabilities.
I almost said statistical improbabilities, but
yeah. So yeah, go check all that stuff out. Which you can find wherever you're listening to this. If you're listening in the future, then even maybe future stuff. If Deep Space Nine or if Section 31 is back, episodes about that will be available to listen to. I don't know. Yeah. But and if you want to leave us a comment, do that on YouTube. Otherwise, we won't read it. But my name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Adios.
We look forward to seeing you next week. Just remember to keep those scones hot and buttered.
That's good.